Yeah, Sinana. So the first, sir, what exactly JDBC, sir? The full name is simply called as Java Database Connectivity. The name itself is telling, see, Java Database Connectivity. Simple. Am I right? So what it will do means a JDBC is a driver, or I can say that an interface or a simple one program. Very simply, if you call, okay. So it's a simple program or an interface or a driver which will help us to connect our database to Java application. Why? Because as we are all aware of that, our the Java application is developing using Java language. So the syntax or the language or the code what we are writing in Java, it is completely different from the database what we are consuming, or the SQL language or queries what we are writing is completely different, as you know, because SQL queries is different, core Java language is different. So they cannot communicate each other, or simple words I can say that we cannot mix up both SQL and Java in single program. If we mix it also, it will show the syntactical errors definitely, because system does not understand it. Okay, JDK does not understand what SQL queries we are written, because that is different and Java is different. So someone is asking, is it audible to all? So can confirm you, is it audible my voice to everyone? Can anyone confirm me? Is it audible my voice?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Yeah, then great, then great. Okay. Yeah, so as I mentioned, right, like this is an interface or as a driver which will help you to communicate from our Java code to database, or we can say that SQL. Okay, so to make it a common platform between the two different languages, definitely we require a bridge, or we called it as a interface. So that kind of interface only JDBC, and JDBC is specially designed to communicate from only Java applications. Okay, so before that we can actually have the ODBC, but it is like will work on only Windows. But to overcome that issues, JDBC developed by Java people separately, and this will work in any what you call platform. I can say that means JDBC can work in Microsoft or Windows. I can say that Windows, Mac or Linux, Unix, everywhere it will work, but only with Java to database. Okay, and that too, this JDBC mostly used with like to do database operations like insert, delete, update, select, that all operations we can perform. Okay, so this is simply I can say that what is exactly JDBC, and what exactly we will do in JDBC Sarante. In JDBC, as on the screen if you are able to see, totally 4 steps we will perform in generally. The first one, we will establish the connection with the database, because Java program or JDK or Java I can say that should aware where the database really is there, and where uh, Gauri Mayuri raised hand. So any issue, Nana? Any doubt? Are you speaking? We couldn't able to hear you. You can chat. You can type in chat. Hello. No, accidentally you raise the hand, or do you require really required? Anything you want to ask? Hello. Okay, done. Still enough, fine. So the point here is, as I mentioned, like first we require to indicate the where actually the database is installed and where it is available. So mostly it will be two types. It may be in your machine only, it may be in some other machine. So if it is some other machine, we should map with the IP address. If it is in your machine, we can map with the local host. Okay, but we have to specify where our database really installed. Okay, and three other parameters also we need to provide to the connection. That is, generally every database is self authenticated. That means without user ID, password, or without login credentials we can't use the database, or we can't connect with the database. So we, along with the path of the database or the place where it is available, we have to provide username and password also. And the third thing, database is a something like storage, I can say that, where we can have multiple database or multiple tables we can have. So out of that, which you want to connect present or at present, so that also we have to pass. So totally three parameters. One is database name which you want to connect, and the username password of the database, DBMS I can say that, which is generally you are getting at the time of installation. Generally, for our local installation, root will be the user ID for everyone, ROOT, but the password will be given by the at the installation time. So it is not common for everyone. At the time of installation, it will ask you to set the password. Whatever password you set, that will you can remember. Okay, so that is the first thing we have to take care. Like we need to map the where the database and what do you call it, the pass the parameters, by that connections will be opened. Okay, and also we need to specify the driver name, like what type of driver we are going to be using. So there is a different types of drivers JDBC, like thin driver or native driver or bridge driver, like that there is many. But out of that, at present in all applications we are using thin driver. So that is also will indicate as part of this connection establishment. Okay, so totally two things will making note on that. So one is like driver selection, second one is like connection creation. Okay, and then we will actually execute the SQL query what we want to really execute on the database. Like example, as I mentioned, right, like insert, delete, update or select. So which query you want to run, write the query and run it. So definitely after execution of the query we may get some results. So that results will be thrown to the Java program, and in the Java program, however you want to use it, like you want to store somewhere, or you want to display somewhere, or you want to navigate somewhere, it's up to you, your requirement. You have to do accordingly. So that is all about the steps generally what we will follow in the JDBC. Now we will see one by one detail, like what are the steps or how the syntactical approach I mean to say. So that we will see one by one. Okay. Yeah, so this is, as I mentioned, JDBC API, like mostly in three-tier models. Mostly database will be the last, like backend I can call it is generally we call, right, backend. So we have three-tier means three front end, middle end, back end, we can say that. In the front end we generally used designing part, and in the middle end we used business logic, that is actually the core in our terminology Java. Basically front end will be HTML, and the backend will be database in generally. Okay, so to interact with the backend to middle we will use this particular JDBC API. Okay, and that API we interface all are same words only, don't confuse that. Okay. Yeah, so as I mentioned, like see, this is how the work is going on. So Java application wants to communicate with the DBMS. To do that, we are internally using JDBC driver manager, and this driver manager, as I mentioned, is providing multiple types of drivers, like bridge driver and a native driver and thin driver. These are the different drivers, and by using any of these driver, we can able to communicate with the DBMS. So as I mentioned, so if you observe that, thin is the driver which directly communicate from our application to a DBMS. There is no intermediate component required. That's why the performance will be little more compared to other types. So that's why we are using thin driver in currently. Okay. And now come back to the how the architecture, the flow will be means, as I mentioned. So first we have to connect to the database, and then we have to write the query and execute the query, and then we will get the results as per your requirement. You can process them, like store or display as your requirement. And finally we need to close the connection which you opened initially, because like every database allows some certain number of connections by default, like maybe 100, 200, like that. So once it is reaching the connection count, once it is reaching the maximum count, it doesn't allow you user to connect to the database. It will stop you to do the operation. That's why you should keep always keep the mind, keep the point in the mind, like always whenever you open the connection with the database, after work is done, please close the respective connection. Otherwise it may causes the performance and as well as connection issues with the database. Okay. Yeah, I hope understand as of now. So if you have any doubts, please ask Nana as of now. Otherwise, I will continue the remaining slides. Sorry, Nana, any doubts as of now? No, right? Okay. Yeah, as I mentioned, right? So in the connection of the statement, we have two steps totally. One is registration of the driver, and the second one connecting to the database. and the second one as a, so in the query again we have to create the statement and then we have to trigger the query to the database. That is as I explained step by step. And the next we have to execute the query and get the results and assign the values to the Java variables. Like as I mentioned, right, like in the Java program we will use arrays, list, whatever you convenient you can store somewhere. And finally we need to close the all the objects so far you opened for the respect to connection establishment, like connection object and statement object and as well as result set object. Otherwise what will happen, I already explained, unnecessarily memory will be leaked, I mean that unnecessarily memory will be wasted. Okay, yeah, so that is all about theoretical process, but practically if you want to establish the, or if you want to do the database connections, so these are the steps we have to take care. The first one as I mentioned, so register the driver. The what it is indicating register the driver means we have to select the type of the driver which you are going to be using for the I mean that communicating with the database. As I mentioned, right, we are using thin driver. So here I quizzed on the screen like so syntax will be class dot for name basically. So the for name is a static method of the superclass called class, and which is used to load the class from the respective path. So here as I mentioned, class dot for name followed by driver name, we will give that. So driver name is nothing but the name of the driver which you are wants to interact with the database. Like I given example for Oracle and MySQL. Similarly, the driver name might will change with respect to SQL Server and as well as Postgres, like that. So most popular we used Oracle, MySQL. That's why I mentioned as a two drivers. So these are fixed for every time, like for everyone also, not for X to X. Like if you want to use the Oracle, the driver name is common, and if you want to use the MySQL, the driver name is common for everyone. So it's not, it won't change for anyone. And as I mentioned, right, the few steps like the first two steps and the last step is common for every program and every application. Only third and fourth step only will change requirement to requirement, the query execution and handling the results. But the connection establishment and registration of the driver and as well as closing the driver is common for everyone. Okay, so based on the database it will be fixed. And now we have to connect to the database after once the driver registration is done. Once the selection of the driver completed, we have to connect with the database by passing the three arguments as I mentioned already. So one is like like URL where the database is available, and the second one username, password also. Like once you pass properly these three parameters, then definitely the Java program can able to communicate with the respective database which you are really looking forward to communicate. And similarly, I mentioned I will share this PPT with you in the groups or in our groups also. Don't worry, like the content you need not to write while you're listening the class. I will share this PPT with you in the WhatsApp groups. Okay, and again, here also again it will change to database. Like if it is Oracle, the path what I shown you, like example Jdbc colon Oracle. So Jdbc is the name of the driver, Oracle is the name of the database, tin is the driver name, at the rate localhost as I mentioned, right. So it is indicating the local system configuration. 1521 is the port number, so that is unique number for the application which we are installing in our mission, and XC is the DB name. Okay, and here system is the username, admin is the password. Similarly, I even mentioned the URL for the MySQL also. So here also same JDBC, as you know, driver name, MySQL database name, and slash slash localhost is indicating the MySQL is available in our local machine, and 3306 is indicating port number. Again, once again I'm repeating, port number is indicating application unique ID in the local machine. Okay, so here EMP is the database name, root is the username, and admin123 is the password. So likewise, we have to pass the path and the username and password. Here, if you observe the MySQL, the path and the root is common for everybody. Admin123 will change from person to person, and it will define at the time of installation. So as of the, I mean the two steps I explained, one is the registration of the driver and the connection to the database. Is these two steps, doesn't anyone have any doubts in this, or shall I proceed? So when we want to write a JDBC program or when we want to communicate with the database, so first program line we will write this one, class dot for name followed by driver name. So the driver name will depends on the database which you are communicating. Okay, So here some for the example I given Oracle and MySQL. Similarly, you can find for Postgres and SQL Server also. And second thing, you need to connect to the database. For that, you need to pass the 3 arguments totally. One is URL, another one username, and the last one password. And here similarly given the 2 examples for MySQL and similarly given the 2 examples for Oracle and MySQL. Okay, and as I mentioned, after these 2 steps completed, like see, before going to do any program with the database, first you need to test these 2 lines are really executed successfully or not. Once it is done, then only you can go for other steps. Otherwise, there is no need of doing that, and there is it's a time wasting process. So once your connection established, like please check it while you are writing the code whether the connection is null or not. If it is null, so it is indicating that the connection is not successful. If connection is not null, it is having some value, then it means that it is successfully established. So the after checking that, you have to start the statement. So as I mentioned, so statement is a Java interface or Java class, I can say that, so which will help you to carry the query to the database, or I can say that, which is will help you to execute the query, I can say that. So whatever the query you are expected to execute will, will execute the query and return the results to your particular output. Just 1 second now. Yeah, so like this statement will help you to execute your query and return the result to the Java program. So in this, again, we have 3 types of statement. Maybe you can use any of that. Simple statement, prepared statement, and callable statement. So simple statement means it is simply will execute a static queries like select, simple any query which doesn't have any dynamic parameters, positional parameters. But if you want to pass positional parameters, like example dynamic data, like for example you want to retrieve for a particular city, you want to retrieve the data for particular ID, or you want to delete some data for particular name. So such kind of things we can handle by prepared statement generally. And finally, if you want to run procedures or any inbuilt functions in database, we'll use the callable statement. But as I mentioned, right, detail we'll see in the later classes, but still for our internship classes we require to understand basics. That's what I'm covering a little bit about it. And the syntax, how I already mentioned here. So statement equal convert create statement will return the statement, simple statement. And similarly we will have other syntaxes also, so that will be part of remaining prepared statement. And even at the time of execution, tomorrow, day after tomorrow, like I mean the tomorrow means Monday. So Monday class I will explain all these things one by one, so that you can get clarified everything practically. Okay, and after that the next step will be execution of queries, as I mentioned. So for that also JDBC is providing some set of methods to do that. Like we have different methods: execute query, execute update, and execute. So these are the different approaches where we can run the queries. Like if you want to run the select query, like fetching the information, generally we'll use execute query. And if you want to execute the insert, update, delete, so we'll use the execute update. And also like when you want to run them like a callable statement, we'll use the execute. Like that, it depends on the situation, whichever required we can use that. Okay, and after that, definitely as I mentioned, we have to close the connection and statement, and sometimes result set also. So this is all about like how we will do in generally. Okay, and briefly I will explain the queries. As I mentioned, CRUD operation queries also, like see, create, insert, delete, update, select. These are the basic queries which generally used in application development. So that's why we call it, these are CRUD operations. And this is the common syntax, like for queries. I will share this, go through that. If you have any doubts, please ask me. So this is some of the queries I given some examples, like insert into employee, followed by columns and followed by data. And but see, definitely I can say that to better understand you required SQL knowledge, definitely that at the time of SQL class I will teach you. So definitely you will get to understand more about at that time, but as of now just understand the flow, how the application we are going to be developing, and how the database will be integrating with our application to store our data, to fetch some data to the application, and how really the interactions going on, like example login or registration or change password. These are how it is happening in the real time. So to make it understand, and just continue these topics, but detail will go, and will understand of the later on stage. Okay. And similarly, as I mentioned, right, we have different set of queries like update, delete, and also select. So these are the some set of statements or set of queries. Generally, like for example, if you want to retrieve entire data, we'll write select start from table name generally. So when you want to particular ID, where ID equal to 2 means it will fetch only the record which is having the ID called 2. So like that you can filter the data also. And similarly, delete from EMP means it will delete entire data from the respective table. And delete from table where id equal to 3 means specifically it will read the third record only, it doesn't touch the other than third record. Similarly, you can update the data also, and you can insert the data. So these are the different operations what generally we can perform on the application level. So this is all about your database interaction, so just by following this ppt only I will explain that tomorrow also very easily you can understand how to perform that. So tomorrow I will take a simple example, like we'll create a form, and where we will read some data from the form to the java application like jsp, and from the jsp just I want to trigger this particular database interaction to store data. Very simple level, it's a very low level I can say, it's not a high level, it's a very low level granular level we can try to understand, so that you can easily understand the component. And if you want to really reuse the component where we can write multiple methods and all the stuff, that is different story. But as of now, at least by basic level we should able to understand how our application is communicating with the database, and how the data will be storing. So that I will explain in the Monday class. Okay. So as of that time, like I will share this ppt with you by today. So please go through that ppt, and try to understand the concepts, and try to read one or more times the ppt, and as for your understanding, and try to understand the queries basically. And Monday I will try to execute that all the stuff in the one application, like where I will show all these operations in our one application. But it might take 3 days of class, like whatever the next week we have 3 days, right? Entire 3 days will take for this entire CRUD operation, like insert, delete, whatever I told you for that. So but by the 3 class you can understand how our java application will can communicate with the db, and can do operations on the db. Okay. So that might give you some idea how the application really is happening in the real time. Okay. And after that, like we'll see how to integrate the template. That will be the mostly last session of the our internship. So how to integrate template, and how to customize the template as per our application needs. So that I will teach you in the upcoming classes. Okay. Yeah. So once it is done, we'll come back to the our regular training classes. Okay. So as of now, any doubts you can ask me, otherwise I will quit the class. So if anybody have any doubt, please ask me. Okay, so I hope I didn't hear any voice, so we can leave, and Monday we can meet by same time. And as I mentioned, right, I will share this video and along with the PPT. Please go through that, and if you have any doubt, please ask me. Okay, bye, take care.